Those of you in the room that are doing international trade every day know the complexities of it, but you also know the value of entering those markets. So as a member of the steering committee, international steering committee for Select Cobb, our mission is to help companies grow, create more jobs for Cobb and Metro Atlanta people, more jobs for people across our area, and also to attract international companies to locate their headquarters here. So you may be aware we have a large number of German companies in Cobb County, Dutch companies, Japanese companies, Korean companies. It's really become a growth area as Dana Johnson and Amanda Blanton have worked really hard to wave the Cobb County flag, particularly across Europe and Asia, expanding into other markets. So very excited to be here tonight. We can't do these events without having a sponsor, and I'd like to introduce Michael Maneely with the Maneely Law Firm. The firm specializes in family law. It's been a year since we were last here having this type of webinar. And you told me then you have been involved with family law on every continent, except Australia.
Antarctica.
So you got news for us?
No change.
No change, okay. I was hoping Antarctica would be there. But Michael, thank you for your longtime sponsorship. Like I said, it's very important, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
We want to hear a little bit about your firm.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, we've handled cases on every continent in the world except for Antarctica, where penguins apparently don't get divorced very often. We're, to some extent, a traditional family law firm, but truly our niche is international family law. And what we have become is an important tool in the arsenal of the HR department, because folks are bringing folks over here from other places, and as is sometimes the case, one half of them becomes very comfortable here, the other half just wants to go home. And that creates problems for, that creates problems for the family unit, which, as HR folks will tell you, creates problems for the C-suite and the rest of the management department when one of their members is having to deal with something so personal, such a crisis at home. So the international family law aspect has to do chiefly with child abduction. When one of the parents goes home with the other kid, the other part of it has to do with when they have property in separate countries, and how to deal with all the complex litigation that goes on with that. And we are so pleased to be able to support Cobb Select in its critical work in Cobb County and really bring the focus to the world to Cobb County, because we believe in this county. I grew up here. This is where I went to school. This is home base for me. So thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity.
Thank you so much. And everybody is like behaving so well. We have people sitting up in the front, and we have people, our panelists are already lined up, ready to go. Like, there's not much for me to do here except moderate the panel. So I was going to use the box, but I guess I'll just go ahead and stand here since I'm already here. And we're going to share this one. I'm going to go ahead and just give us a quick orientation. What are we doing here? I like to always do this at the beginning of every event because I think different people have different reasons. Global Atlanta is a news service that's been around since the early 1990s. We've been covering Atlanta's ties to the world, and that has to do with inbound and outbound, right? So here we're kind of celebrating the outbound aspect. Georgia-based companies, in this case Cobb-based or Cobb-adjacent, we're saying, for some of them, companies that are doing business internationally. And trying to, when you think about global business, sometimes people say the world is flat. Obviously, we can communicate like we never could before, but when you get into these nuts and bolts of sending nuts and bolts or other items around the world, you quickly find that there are many hills and valleys that you have to navigate and difficult terrain. And so we want to highlight voices from companies that have actually done this. And the goal is to really inspire other companies to either get involved in exporting or to think about what that might mean for their company, or to advance their existing initiatives. So but I wanted to thank the Cobb Chamber, Select Cobb, one of our partners, and also the Maneely firm is one of Global Atlanta's partners as well, and so supporting us throughout the year. Now this event is one of the first that we're doing under what we are now calling our Global Atlanta Passport. So some of y'all are members of Global Atlanta now. We did not have this option before, so we just launched that with kind of a soft launch in December, and have started to see as the memberships come through. So thank you all so much for your support. The Passport, you pay one price, you come to everything for free. We don't nickel and dime you. And Global Atlanta in the past year has had 30 plus events, including this one, which has become a perennial favorite, but also we have a series called Consular Conversations that we host every month with a different diplomat. Thursday, we're going down to Macon for another celebration of global trade and investment. So there's a lot of things going on. I would encourage you to get in touch with Michael on your way out if you're interested in learning about our events that we have going on. So with that, with no further ado, we're going to go to our panel. I'm going to introduce them with not the floweriest introductions, but efficient. We have Will Kent, who's the Director of Inside Sales for Southwire. Come on down.
You didn't know if I was supposed to walk down here?
Yes. We need some walk-up music. But and then we've got John Daniel, co-founder and Executive Vice President of Global Partnerships and Business Development from ProgenaCare Global, LLC. Thank you, John. Francesca Evans, Vice President of International Sales for Americo Manufacturing. And then Guido Adriansens from Wow Motorcycles. And I'm sad he took his leather jacket off, but I guess we'll let it. I still have not been to Guido's facility yet, much to my shame, because he has invited me, but 60,000 square feet.
It's bigger than this stadium here.
Here in Cobb County with a lot of motorcycles. So,
yep.
Some awaiting export and some being sold domestically. So I'm going to actually let all of you, as our panelists, tell us about your business. But I will say that we're here in what is a thriving export ecosystem here in Atlanta, Metro Atlanta. And we have some of those export resources in the room. We have people that work with the Exim Bank, like Thomas Mathias. We have people who, I don't think we have anybody from the state of Georgia here, do we? But we have lots of different resources available. You'll find if you get into the exporting game that we have Small Business Development Center for UGA as an international trade angle. There's so many different U.S. commercial service. And once you start going down this path, you will find that there's plenty of resources available to help you navigate those challenges. So, and I'm going to ask y'all about how you do that in your business. But first of all, I guess we'll start. Maybe we'll start with Guido. Tell us a little bit about Wow Motorcycles. I think you're the only non-manufacturer on the panel, so we'll start from there. But and don't give me your whole history, because I'll come back and ask you about that a little bit. You can give us the abridged version.
Okay. You're there, yes? Okay. Well, I'm all way different from those people here. I sell fun. I sell happiness all over the world, and it's an amazing feeling that we can do that. How much more sexy can you do with motorcycles instead of cables?
Wow, a little rivalry this time.
So it's a wonderful product to be involved in, that's for sure. I started in 91 selling export, not just one, but everything that I had. We did 100% exports. So I'm a little bit in reverse of what people do. They manufacture, sell domestically, and then export becomes a little bit a sideline. For me, it was the line that I had to grow in.
What does WOW stand for? Tell us what WOW stands for.
WOW stands for World on Wheels International.
Yeah.
So the trading company I started was, in fact, in a couple of years I did trading with the old-fashioned, I'm talking about the late 80s. Some of you will still remember we had fax machines in those days, correct? Okay, well I did container loads of fax machines, antiques, Budweiser and things like that all over the world from America.
Wait, a Belgian was dealing in Budweiser? What's up with that?
Well, it seemed that. So it's
well,
a
now it is. But,
yeah. No, I was.
Y'all eventually won that battle. The Belgians won.
Yeah, but the grass is always greener on the other side. So even in Belgium, they like Budweiser.
That's right.
It's crazy how the world is. It's like in Germany, they like BMW bikes, but they also have Triumphs and Harley Davidson. So anyway, we grew out of exports only. Then after a number of years, the export market slowed down around the year 2000. and we said, hey, what shall we do? We did then open retail store, and that started booming like crazy because we became the #1 as an independent dealer of used motorcycles in the country. And as a comparison, we do just like CarMax for cars, we do with motorcycles. We exported over the years to about 55 countries all over the world, all over the continents, and we still keep doing that. To a much lesser extent, we were 100%. Right now, I would say we're down to 20%. There have been years that it was 0 because of whatever circumstances, but we still keep going very strong, and the fact that we build a 60,000 square feet building, that is the proof that we believe in the future. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. Jessica, tell us, and pass the mic down as you go, because I'm not going to relinquish my moderator mic, unfortunately.
I'll see if I can manage.
But yeah, tell us about Americo Manufacturing.
Sure.
And
So-
where are you located?
We are located in Athens, Georgia. We manufacture high loft non-woven material. If you think about the thin green backing on a yellow cellulose sponge that most of us have in our kitchens, that's what we make. We supply a lot of different industries, but we focus primarily on the cleaning industry. And our specialty is floor pads, which are used on those big machines that you see at night cleaning hospitals, hotels, schools, whatever. And we've been around 55 years. We were a family-owned business for 50 years. We've been acquired twice in the last 5 years, which means we've tripled in size and are now part of the Clean Solutions Group. And as far as exports go, we started exporting, I believe it was in the late 70s. We started by attending a trade show called Interclean in Amsterdam, which we still participate in every 2 years.
Is it still in Amsterdam, or does it
It's
move
still
around?
in Amsterdam.
Okay.
It's every 2 years in Amsterdam, coming up in May. And we export consistently to about 60 countries, and 25 to 30% of our commercial product sales are exports.
And we will get some that are able to say the percentages and some that won't, so we'll get to that. But yeah, John Daniel, ProgenaCare.
Hello, I'm John Daniel. I'm the co-founder of ProgenaCare Global. We started out as Cell Constructs. We are an organically grown Georgia-based company. We started right in the incubators at Georgia Tech, ATDC, back in the early days. And soon after, we decided that it was a little bit challenging to get proper space and laboratory space, so we moved over to the less popular Georgia State University Collab Tech incubator, and that's where we got our start. But all along the way, we've been involved with, Georgia has been such a great state to start a company between Georgia Tech, Georgia State, the Georgia Research Alliance. We were able to incubate this company and grow organically, and then
That's kind of a double entendre there, growing organically. Right? tell us about the product.
Yeah, we've developed the first and only human keratin wound graft. It is a skin substitute that is used to treat the worst of the worst wounds. People with healthcare problems, namely diabetes and vascular disease, they develop these horrible wounds on their legs and feet. We also treat burns, surgical incisions. Our body's outer surface is made of keratin. Our product is a keratin-based product, and one of the most unique things about our product is, if you know a little bit about keratin, there's a bunch of places you can get keratin from. Rhinoceros tusk, not so easy, horse hooves, sheep wool. But the most beautiful thing about our company is we get our keratin from donated hair clippings, and that's from 3 salons right now and growing right here in Marietta. We are based 1 exit up, and our headquarters are there, our manufacturing's there, and we're proud to be a Marietta-based company, and so happy that we've gotten involved with you guys.
Perfect. And I did want to mention too, that I think what I was getting to is to say that some of these companies have won awards for their exports. And John was, ProgenaCare was recently named one of the Export Challenge winners. Cobb has been one of the strong participants and participating regions in this collaborative economic development initiative known as the Atlanta Metro Export Challenge. And we've been covering this for a long time. I was a judge, not on yours, so I can't take any credit for helping you win, but I've been a judge in the past. And it's always great. This is the most fun part of my job, is learning about companies and the great products that you all have. So these companies get $5,000 in reimbursable grant funding to go to things like trade shows or translate materials. So I might ask you about that in just a moment. And then I think Americo, y'all are a global award winner.
Yes.
Yeah, so the global award is from the state, which recognizes companies as they tap into new markets around the world every year. And Global Atlanta is a global award, which is crazy. I don't know if you do that, but this is from 10 years ago or something. But it's goods and services.
We were also a global.
You're also a global award winner. All right, good. Well, great. So this is just to show you that there is an ecosystem here, and there's a real initiative in the city to promote the job-creating benefits of export sales. So, Will, tell us about Southwire.
Well, good evening.
And tell us about your Cobb presence, because I don't think everybody associates Southwire with Cobb, because we just think of Carrollton.
You're right, and we are relatively new to Cobb, so we've just been here a couple of years. But good evening, everyone. My name is Will Kent. I lead all of our international commercial operations as well as our industrial customer service teams for Southwire. I'm going to put a caveat in there. We're going to set our international groups to 3 primarily groups. So Canada, or a Canadian group, our SCR group, which I can talk about a little bit, and then our international wire and cable group. So I lead our international wire and cable group, which is essentially everywhere but Canada. We have a well-established separate business group in Canada that services the Canadian market, and my teams will service everywhere but Canada. But we are a large-scale wire and cable manufacturer. We are one of the top largest wire and cable manufacturers in the world. We are actually the largest in North America. We were founded in 1950, and we are still a privately held company. Our original founder passed away in the early 80s. His oldest son is still the chairman of the board, and all of his other children are still on the board, so the family is still very heavy in the business. We're on our second non-family CEO, so that's kind of our brief history. But when you talk wire and cable, it's any type of wire and cable you can think of, from bare overhead utility products. That's originally how we were founded back in 1950 as an overhead utility company. Now we've expanded into any type of copper and aluminum products that you can think of, from the wiring in the home. In your home, approximately half of the homes in the U.S. have Southwire product in them. It's your standard 12 to 14.2 Romex type product that's going to operate your switches and your lighting and all of your appliances. To commercial building wire, so all the wire in this building. To also heavy, high voltage underground utility and industrial products as well. I've been with Southwire about 10 years, and if you look at how we've grown as an organization, we're getting into adjacent markets. So it's not just wire and cable now, it's everything that goes with wire and cable. Our goal is to be a solutions provider for the installer, right? So it's tools, it's components, it's different type of diversified assemblies. So it may be a wire with some type of connector on it, or different types of opportunities there as we've grown through acquisition, down to hand tools. So if you've been to Lowe's or any of your retail space, you'll see screwdrivers, you'll see pliers, you'll see boxes, you'll see fittings with the Southwire name. So definitely not as sexy as Guido said earlier, but a well-established
Screwdriver can.
a well-established company. And as we said, we are based. Our primary corporate office is in Carrollton, Georgia, where we were originally founded. And a couple of years ago, we've expanded here into the Battery, which has been a very exciting expansion for us. We have people here they're based here, and then we have people globally from a manufacturing and sales standpoint.
Great. Do y'all manufacture everything in the U.S., or do you have other? I mean, I know that I've been to one of your factories in Honduras, and they made some really great plugs for RVs.
Yes, so that's when I talk about those adjacent products,
Right.
The power boxes,
So
the
like
plugs.
the cable part, is that mostly here?
The majority of our cable manufacturing is here in North America.
Okay. So you get the raw materials from, I would assume, everywhere around the world, Chile and other places.
The copper comes from Chile. Yeah, we procure copper directly from the mines in Chile, and it's delivered to North America and then processed in our facilities.
Nice, nice. Well, tell us, I mean, it doesn't have to be you, Will, somebody else can start. We heard a little bit about Vito's journey into exporting and how he kind of went backwards, but most companies will start, again, like Vito said, domestically selling, and then are either pushed or pulled or dragged kicking and screaming into export. So I kind of wondered if any of y'all wanted to talk about kind of how you've approached the export market, how you've, whether that's been, done to serve a customer. Francesca, you talked about going to a trade show. Was it strategic on the part of America? I mean, you may not have been around.
I wasn't around.
Back then,
It was back
50
in the
years ago.
70s. So I cannot say. But I imagine that there was some intent.
Well, how about when you think about new markets at this point? Where you're going to sell now, right? How do you
Where do
strategically?
I want to sell now?
Yeah,
So
you're the vice
we
president of
sell
international.
Quite a bit in Europe. We're very heavily selling to Europe, the Middle East. I think we're weak in the Far East. I spent some time in the Far East, so I have a personal interest in going there and trying to improve our sales there.
And what's the process like? Is it that you go to a trade show and collect business cards, or is it that you have intermediary customers that will buy the product and distribute it? How does that work?
So as far as all our different channels, we work with sales reps in different countries. We have converting partners that buy our material in rolls and then cut it to size locally, depending on what the needs are there. We work with big distributors. We sell to big global brands like Diversey and Milfisk, which are floor machine companies. But as far as going into a new market, yes, you can do the Interclean show in Amsterdam and you will get people from all over the world. Ooh, sorry about that. Apparently I don't know how to use this thing.
That's all right.
So
I think they turned up the volume.
So, but with the internet, we are so blessed now. We can do so much research. We have organizations like the Georgia Department of Economic Development. They share information with us. They can do credit checks on companies if you're not sure whether a company is trustworthy, creditworthy. So it's much easier than in the past.
Yeah.
And most companies now have a website where you can already start preliminary research. Then, of course, you start communicating with them by email, to video calls, to visits in person.
Does it generally follow that as an economy develops, there's a need for your product? I mean, is that, would you say it's that simple?
Yes,
or? Okay.
yes. In the less developed countries, they're still cleaning floors by hand.
Right.
They're not really interested in using machines.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
John, how did y'all think about, I mean, your product seems to be one that is global from birth or conception, so tell us about that. How are you thinking about different markets around the world?
Yeah, definitely.
How do you think about the balance between the needs here domestically versus, the immense needs you talked about in Ukraine and other places?
Well, the problem here in the U.S. is it's so incredibly bad. I mean, healthcare as a whole has opened our eyes to, well, it goes way beyond the borders here. So what we really did to get started is we do work. Let me back up a second. ProgenaCare is a little bit different of a company. We are a privately held company, and we are a for-profit company. But we realize we've developed such a great product that in the U.S., there are so many people that have limited access to quality health care. So we have our competitors and everyone else that they go to these markets where, well, you got to have insurance and all that. We, thanks to our chairman and lead investor, Bert Jones, I want to thank him because he's been here from the beginning. He was our investor, and he believed in us when, people thought we were crazy. You're going to turn hair into a wound care product and solve problems? Well, he believed from the beginning. And it's been an amazing ride, as they say, the journey. ProgenaCare is one company of a network of companies. We have a parent company called Better right now. Today we're focusing on ProgenaCare, but would love after this to talk to anyone and everybody about what we're doing. But we've done work in Africa, namely Zanzibar. We've got a hospital there that we're partnered with. We treat, it's a military hospital, but we treat wounds. We're talking to them on a weekly basis. But they're one of our, the program that we developed, we pledged 1/3 of our production to go to people that have little to no access of quality health care here in the U.S. and in the developing world. So our first focus was Africa. So we set up a wound care center along with the doctors and nurses in Zanzibar, and we went out there and launched our product and had a wonderful event. Now today we're providing wound care products in Zanzibar, Tanzania, Uganda, getting started in Rwanda. We're just going to check all the boxes in Africa.
Well, what does it look like? I mean, healthcare generally heavily regulated market, so I would assume that your approach to the markets can differ dramatically depending on whether you're in the U.S. or different countries in Africa. So how do you balance those concerns?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I've been doing this a while, so there's a lot of these other competitive products where there's so many different manufacturers. What helps us and why we're so unique is we're a one-of-a-kind product. There's nothing like it anywhere else in the world. But the best part about it, it heals wounds better and faster than anything else out there. We're still small, we're growing, but because of the nature of our product and the culture of the company and the fact that we're a purpose-driven, patient-focused company, when we talk to the ministries of health and the people that you usually have to go through the registration process, which you have to do in every country, when we explain what we do, it's amazing how we get special permits to come in and treat these people with wounds. And then once they see these wounds heal, like some of these patients have had these wounds for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. It's the leading cause of amputation. We come in, we train the doctors, we put them on the wounds. It's a process, but when you take the bandage off and these wounds heal, you should see the faces of the patients and the doctors. They're blown away. They're like, oh my God, some of these patients have been promised everything. Absolutely, and they've heard everything. Everybody says they have the best product. Well, anyway, we have a great product. We always say, I just got back Sunday from Arab Health. Yeah. I was one of the Georgia Department of we were one of the Georgia Department of Economic Development companies that got selected. What an overwhelming success. But so this was just last week, and the interest by all of these countries. I mean, I've got so much work to do now. Yeah. But
well, that's always the challenge with these things. It's like, how do you navigate the opportunities, right? Because the challenge with even getting people to think about exporting sometimes is that, why do I need to export when I can sell to Alabama, right? Like, and if if I'm particularly a family-owned company and I just want to run my company as it is, and I don't really need to grow that much, I have a lifestyle kind of business, like, that's fine. But there are a lot of companies that have these inbound inquiries and don't really know how to prioritize them. So that's kind of where I was going with that question. And you never really know kind of what you're missing sometimes, to your point. Yeah. What about you, Will? What about Southwire? I mean, y'all are a big family-owned company, but a very large company. So how do you think about opportunities around the world, and which markets? You said Canada has its own kind of business entity, but obviously, I would assume regulation touches you as well. You've got to have a risk mitigation strategy with metals and things and electronic products that are going around the world. So how do you manage risk and find market opportunity?
Yeah, so if you look at how do we go to market globally, we have partners within regions, right? We have an extensive network of sales agents that represent us locally. So that assists us with local customs and local cultures and how to go to market in those local territories. Our largest markets are, of course, North America, being Canada, the U.S., but Latin America is a very large market for us, being Central America, Caribbean, and Mexico area. We do sell globally, so we have agents in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. We've got agents in South America. We've also got agents over in the Asia Pacific region. And some of the challenges that we see are how we go to market at times is going to be very specification driven. So in the construction industry or in the utility industry or in the industrial industry, the products are specified. It has to meet certain types of specifications, whether it be a size, a color, whatever it may be. The majority of the products that we produce are going to be either an underwriter's laboratory or a UL or a CSA spec. So those are your most common North American specifications. We also run into what you see in what we call an IEC spec, which is a very heavily European specification. So that's we get into opportunities based off what spec is on the product. Now we also try to specify our specific product. It may have this feature or that feature that a competitor's product do, as long as it meets within that UL specification. So that's typically how we go to market. We receive requests from a website, as you were saying earlier. We have a way where customers can come on. You can search us as a global wire and cable manufacturer and submit requests that comes into our international team that we will then either work if it's a direct territory or through an agent network. We'll direct the customer there. Primarily, we go to market through a distribution network, right? We don't sell to many end users. We've got distribution partners in region. One thing that you mentioned, that we were kind of talking.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. Like, if you don't sell to the end user, how do you vet the end user, right? If it's somebody that could maybe be a risk, or you might have export controls or things that you have to validate with the government.
Right,
Sanctions.
And Trevor and I were talking about that before. That's a huge piece of the international business, is what I'll call risk aversion. We are going to be very conservative in regards to risk. And if you look at global challenges right now, there's definitely bad actors out there. So our internal process, we have internal processes within our inside sales team and our outside sales team and our agent networks. There are certain questions we're going to ask before we're even going to offer you a budgetary estimate or a quote, right? We're going to need to know end user, project location. We do service some government work. There's going to be a classified location. Those specific customers have been vetted and controlled, and we know where we can operate and where we can't operate. But any request that comes in from somebody new, or even somebody that's existing, and if it's a project we're not aware of, or in an area, there are certain areas that are higher risk than others. But we have a third-party company that we work with that performs a risk analysis for us and will tell us, hey, there is no history of fraud or FCPA or any type of what I'm going to call a bad actor out there. So we are very strict on those policies. That is a training. If you work in the international group, that is something that we check up daily. In regards to new customer setups, we have a very strict process and a checklist that goes through multiple layers. It's not just one person says, hey, we want to sell to customer A, B in the Middle East, right? So we have to be very careful of that. But we go through a background check as well as a very strong financial check to ensure that we aren't getting too risky for certain markets.
To our smaller companies, how do you do that if you don't have the international group in your company? If you are the international group, or if you have a couple people maybe that are handling compliance, because it might be a totally legit client, that you may be leaving money on the table if you turn them down. So how do you handle that?
We don't feel there's a lot of risk in selling floor pads.
Maybe not. What are they going to use sponges for?
We have a lot of risks. What if they fall down? Our risk is minimalized because we have the customers pay up front. Before we start loading a container, we paid in full. So the risk is very little. We have risks on another level that governments and other people start messing around with the regulations. That risk is unpredictable. Like, we had a huge market in Europe, and all of a sudden the European community comes out with rules and guidelines and regulations that says that vehicles with an American VIN number are not accepted anymore. What do? Well, that's pressure that they got from all the manufacturers, because what we do in export market is what you call gray market. So it's not really that the manufacturers like us that much. In fact, they really don't like me.
And it's basically new motorcycles, or is it?
No, it's all used.
All used? Okay.
Yeah, new
but high
product.
quality used, right? So you're kind of maybe undercutting some of their organic sales. That's
Yes.
why they don't like you.
Officially, it's all used.
Yeah. Okay.
We can put 5 miles on it and it's used, no?
That's right.
So that's what happens. One of our biggest markets in the past was Russia. There was a moment in time, like 10 years ago, that 60% of our sales went straight to Russia.
Wow.
And it was huge, wonderful business for us. Well, then they decided to invade Crimea. Well, we didn't have anything to do with that, but our sales fell from 60% to zero overnight. So the same situation now with Russia. Russia has never recuperated, and we don't wait for that neither anyway.
Yeah.
We look for other markets.
Yeah, well, I think John wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was going to add the risk in the medical field and bringing a new device or drug or technology into any country. You have regulations like you guys have mentioned, but most recent in the past year, if there was a risk, one of our caring access programs where we were contacted to see if we could help in Ukraine. So, of course, our answer is yes, of course, how can we help? And thanks to Amanda Olmstead, if you guys have not met her, please. She's been amazing in pulling things together. But it happened one night. I was talking about our caring access program, the 1/3 of our production. Next thing you know, I'm on a plane to Ukraine, and there's risk. Talk about risk was it's been it's an absolute war zone. And to go there firsthand and see these, I've got twin 18-year-old boys and a 20-year-old daughter, and I've been in the operating room for most of my career. I've seen everything: brain surgery, open heart surgery. I thought I was well prepared to go into Ukraine. Well, in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, we went to 12 hospitals and we were treating these soldiers, civilians, children, babies. I saw things that no one should ever have to see. I was right next. We were training surgeons and the clinical staff on how to use our product. It was really the first time I actually scrubbed, and I was working hand in hand with the doctors. And I just sat there. I went from being a little bit scared to once I got there, I kind of just became numb, and it was just amazing because the world's really messed up right now. There's so much going on in the Middle East and Ukraine and Russia, but there are risks when you're in wound care and your product works great on burns and battlefield wounds. But that was a life-changing event for me. I got to see our product put on directly on young, human-made wounds, soldiers and children, innocent people. So there's a little bit of a risk that we take. That's kind of.
That's one way to open the market for sure. Like, I mean, it's insane to think that the needs are growing so much. But you kind of talked about the fact that you get your payment up front, right? Is that something? Have you always done it that way? Because payment risk and finance, of exports is always a challenge.
Yes, I did that from day one because I didn't have money. So I had to have the customers pay up front, and I kept going with that because the people overseas, well, I guess maybe we had a special product that was not that easy to just go to Walmart and buy a container load of motorcycles. So I was able to offer the customers, by the way, I only do wholesale export, no one by one. That wouldn't, we tried that once, and that was the worst experience. So we only do wholesale. Those dealers overseas, they understand that what it takes to get inventory. So they all got used to the fact that they had to pay up front. And I kept that going. The only issue I have lately is with some of the Far East customers, and then mainly Chinese-born people. They don't like to pay up front. I don't know why. But I have to struggle with that. We did a couple of payment against shipping documents, but we still like to stick to the rule of we would not start loading unless we had half of the payment in full.
Francesca, do y'all do it that way, or do you have ways that you finance your exports through export credit agencies or other?
We do. So we have a variety. We use a lot of different payment terms. Of course, payment in advance is wonderful. But we work with a company called Atradius, which is a credit insurance company, and it makes it very simple. I can click in 5 minutes. I know whether the company is approved for $100,000 of business or not, and it works great for us. But there are other companies, the Import-Export Bank, CoFast, I think, is another one.
Yep.
Yep.
Bill, how do y'all handle that? mean, I would imagine that you'll have quite a bit of power over pricing and everything like that. But
Yeah, so and we've got a full credit, as you said. Our customers are vetted through global databases. Financials have to be submitted. If it's a newer customer, then we may have some cash in advance terms, or we'll start small and then grow. A lot of our global distribution partners we work with domestically as well, so we can leverage relationships that we have domestically. For instance, if there's a South American branch that has fallen behind from a credit or an AR standpoint, we can leverage our relationships here with the headquarters in the U.S. that really help us. So there is always risk there, and we also rely back on that agent representation network to support us. They will go in and really develop those strong relationships, and a lot of our agents aren't just representing wire, right? They've got other components, whether it be lighting or any other type of electrical products that, hey, they can cut the customer off as well too. So we use those relationships that we have to leverage and collect. And I will say we have a large accounts receivable staff that really stay on it and work really hard to make sure that we are all in good standing with our customers.
Well, we're going to open up for questions in just a moment. So I wanted to, first of all, ask you all kind of maybe one or two more questions. But we talked a lot about intermediaries and kind of working through different distributors and all that. And I know that's part of the game, right? But tell us, somebody, if you will, about the cultural aspect or the interpersonal aspect of selling internationally, right? I would imagine that there might be some cultural faux pas that some people have committed. I know I have personally when traveling. Tell us a bit about how you overcome those things.
Again, we have an interesting situation, and it was very deliberate. Our product, we compete against a lot of biologic products, animal-derived products, human-derived products. Early on, our keratin, we've got an FDA 510K, so it's a medical device. So the beauty of our product, we thought about the cultural boundaries. A lot of the products come from pigs or porcine, bovine, cows, collagen, things like that. Our keratin is considered a device, and so culturally, it's accepted everywhere. In fact, we have our product blessed by the rabbi, so it's kosher, and we're in the process of getting halal certification. So there's no cultural barriers.
Yeah.
And then as far as the distributors go, the quick question into that, we use distributors that they're stocking distributors effectively. So our distributor partners are our international customers, and how they handle the local government tenders, as they call them. They put the bids in, but we as a company support them. But culturally, I think we've really figured something out that makes us unique and different from all of our competitors.
Francesca, you mentioned spending time. Was it Japan that you spent time?
China
Okay.
and Taiwan.
Okay, cool. Well, how did that kind of help you in what you're doing now? Because I think that's a big part of it, right?
Well,
It enriches your life.
It's certainly the most
interesting.
fun part, that you get to meet people from all over the world and do business with them. That's for me the best part. Of course, living in a different country makes you more open, gives you a broader outlook. I was raised by an Italian mother and a French-English father, and I was lucky enough to live in a few different countries, so I think that helps. But of course, you can still make mistakes, and you have to be cautious and pay attention if you're going to a new country. Do a little research. I can tell you one of our most popular products is a pad made with hog hair from pigs. And so, although in the Middle East, which is also a big market for us, they love beautiful shiny floors because hog hair makes beautiful shiny floors. We obviously don't market hog hair pads to the Middle East.
There you go. You got to know what you got to do.
Yeah.
And you came here in the late 80s, early 90s from Belgium?
Yes, I moved here and I did some kind of work for the government of Belgium,
Yeah, trade promotion, right? So what was Atlanta like at that time? How have you seen the city grow?
I didn't want to stay here.
Global. Thought you might say that.
No, imagine the first time you go downtown, what do you see if you walk downtown? You get surrounded by concrete walls built by Mr. Portman, isn't it? It's ugly. It's ugly, even if you have to drive your car through downtown, through the tunnel system. But anyway, I loved
But
it
you
because I'm still
stayed.
here.
You stayed.
Yes, I stayed because I loved it. And definitely with starting a company that helped a lot, yes.
Yeah.
But I feel like I am a citizen of the world. I started my company because I love the world, I love traveling. I don't want to be stuck in Atlanta. There has been years that I traveled 6 months, 8 months in a year. Why? Because I love my customers. I love knocking on the doors and do cold calling. I did that in Singapore, in Malaysia, wherever I go. People will not understand me when I speak English, but I open doors on so many levels. One of the funniest things that ever happened to me was we shipped a container of motorcycles to Egypt, to Cairo, and I went to Cairo to see when they were unloading the container. And I was thinking they're going to unload it in a warehouse. No, they unloaded in the center of town on a little market where the goats were roaming and everybody was having some kind of food. At midnight, they started unloading with flashlights from their cell phones. We think we know it all in America. No, we don't. It's amazing how culturally different things can happen, and it makes me the happiest person in the world. I can say that I love a lot of Muslim people, a lot of Jewish people, a lot of people from everywhere in the world, because we're all the same. So it's an amazing, culturally enriching thing to do, exports. I started with nothing but that, 100%. But if you are starting with 5%, 10%, do it as long as you're open-minded and want to be interested in the rest of the world.
Yes.
If you're not interested in the world, then like Trevor said, stay in Alabama.
Hey, I'm from Columbus, Georgia, right on the border.